Pete,
Hey,
thank you.
Todd.
How you doing, man?
Good. How you doing?
Oh, dude, I mean, it's insane. It never stops all night long. I mean, the news flow is just intense. Everybody's working and just, but and I know you are too. So thank you for all the material you sent, and we're ready to go.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, for sure.
a lot to talk about. I want to talk to you about Ukraine and I want to talk Iran, but let's talk about the assassination attempt first.
Sure. Yeah, so we all know what happened this weekend at the White House Correspondents Association dinner. And, I won't go through that. It was obviously an unsuccessful assassination attempt. A
Hmm.
little bit of context for everyone, and it's important to say this out loud. This is now the third direct, specific assassination attempt against President Trump in just 2 years. That's never happened before in the history of our country, over 250 years. And again, you could call that four because a fourth guy, heavily armed guy, broke into Mar-a-Lago and was shot and killed.
Yeah.
Trump wasn't there, but the pattern is explicit, and it begs the question: what's going on? And of course, with the latest, with Allen from the White House Correspondents' Dinner, he happened to have his full archive of social media memorialized for the past 10 years. By the way, the shooter's 31 years old, out of Torrance, California, an academic. So he's
Hmm.
only 31. So he went from 21 years old to 31. And when you immerse yourself in these most of these tweets that are being released online right now, you can look at years worth of tweets. You see that he's being radicalized over the years, and perhaps what's most concerning about it is this is not a some kind of crazed Unabomber type guy writing 10,000 word essays, coming up with his own ideas on things. This is a byproduct of the Democratic Party's psychological operation. He's retweeting. He's not even stating his own thoughts. He's just
Yeah.
retweeting Democratic posts, and specifically intensely starting in the run-up to the 2024 election, with both Kamala Harris and Tim Walz constantly calling President Trump a fascist, a Hitler,
Hmm.
and the media doing their support work as they always do, doing the same thing. And so you ask, what would that affect? Well, we've talked about it before. The psychological operation, the manipulation of people. It's not. It's behavioral psychology 101.
Yeah.
And at the foundation, if for our readers, if you're interested, there's a book called The Crowd by Gustav Le Bon. The amazing thing about this book is it was written in 1896.
Hmm.
And what that tells us is, and in the book, he talks about how crowds can be manipulated, how crowd think is vulnerable to impulsiveness, lack of reason, violent outbursts. And of course, anybody who watches any type of crowd or a riot knows all these things are factors. But
Hmm.
this guy, figured it out back in 1896. The reason the year is actually irrelevant is because human nature hasn't changed
Right.
at all since
Right.
1896. So the same way you manipulated back then is the way you manipulate now. And the number one emotion of a manipulation is fear.
Hmm.
And the Democratic Party's been on that with Trump since they began taking him seriously in 2016, just creating this boogeyman, where it creates an existential threat in the minds of the vulnerable.
Hmm.
Uh, and before we get to some of the empirical examples, I'll just say this: uh, this wasn't their intention. What all of this manipulation started, the target of this manipulation was people who support Trump.
Mm-hmm.
But in the same way as it backfired on them in the scamdemic, remember, the fear was used throughout the pandemic, but their target was non-vaxxer, people who were refusing the vax.
Mm-hmm.
What everyone discovered was that propaganda doesn't work on critical thinking people or people who have other people who can tell them, no, that doesn't make any sense. Have you ever thought of this? But what it does work on in a way that even the behavioral psychologists employed by the Democratic Party could not believe is it worked on their own supporters, which is why within weeks you would see these, you knew who these people were, who they were voting for, driving around in their cars, everyone in the car with a mask on or two masks on.
All the windows rolled up.
Right, the bubble. Secretary Austin from DOD with the Darth Vader mascot.
Yeah.
It worked on their supporters, and that's the same thing that's happened with the calling Trump a fascist, calling him a dictator, calling him Hitler. It's not working on Trump supporters. Trump's support is still high, especially historically high for a first administration. But it's radicalizing the Democratic base, and they're actually manufacturing these crazies.
I was on Rob Manus's show yesterday, Colonel Manus, and he made that point. This guy was not like out of the ordinary. This is like mainstream Democrat dude, because you're right, they've been indoctrinated. And you look at the murderer of the United Healthcare executive. You got all these Democratic women wanting to sleep with the guy because he killed the CEO. I mean, this is crazy land going on.
And he's a known, he's a known individual with psychological issues. All you have to do is talk to his mother. He's schizophrenic. So, to turn him into some sort of heroic figure is just another, reach, but it's not a reach anymore. They think they can manipulate anyone. They think no lie is too big of a lie. No story, no matter how factual, cannot be turned around by lies. And so they go on and on. But just to show some of the numbers, do you have that bar graph, Todd, that shows MSM story count?
Well, I'm not sure where that was. I don't know if I do have that, actually. I
sent it to you I think, I sent it to you last night. But anyway, there's a bar graph to our viewers that just counts the amount of stories.
That's on the Sparrow Hedge article. Hold on, I'll bring it up.
That counts the number of stories by the mainstream media, whereas the lesson or the subject of the story was Trump is a fascist. So this way undercounts. This does not include, that's fine, does not include all the times CNN or MSNBC news readers simply called him a fascist, or guests on their show. This just counts stories. And if you look at that massive spike, that's 300 in the week leading up to the election. So they went super intense, and they've continued that intensity ever since.
For our audience, it says, you can't see it, MSM story count with Trump fascist. So that's what that pop is. And
the high bar is over 300, and it just shows you the number of stories whose subject is Trump is a fascist. So what radicalized Allen were the same talking points that are repeated every day by the Democrats, and that's a principle. It's mentioned in Laban's book, The Crowd. Repetition breeds recognition. You say it over and over and over, and soon it becomes a recognized truism to those who listen without critical thinking. So, now let's just take a look at some of the actual examples of what's fed this. And we have, I think, Tim Walz, Kamala Harris, and maybe Nancy Pelosi in there.
I ask you tonight, do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
The former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, said, "No one has ever been more dangerous to this country than Donald Trump, and he is a fascist to his core." Let that sink in, and don't be a damn bit afraid of saying it, because that's exactly who he is.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
That's Tim Walz calling him a fascist. Kamala Harris was asked by Anderson Cooper, "Do you think Trump is a fascist?" It's a good video because it shows both the mainstream media newsreader and a Democratic politician both collaborating to do the same thing, to call Trump a fascist. And you know, folks, if you have time, I recommend you read because it is online. A number of his tweets right now. One of the other things I want to call attention to is he attacks Trump, and then he goes off on J.D. Vance, and he does this multiple times. And his single criticism of J.D. Vance is advocating for the end of America's funding for the Ukraine war, and his support for Putin. So what's fascinating about this is just showing you the bleed over from their other propaganda efforts. As our viewers know, we don't call it the Ukraine war, we call it the propaganda war. The fighting is real, but everything people have been told about how it started, why it started, and what has caused the EU and the left to continue to perpetuate it has been a lie. And so, you know, you wonder, okay, well, that's Ukraine, but you're seeing this crossover. And let's not forget, Ryan Roush, the guy who hid in the bushes of Mar-a-Lago, visited Ukraine twice, was a massive Ukraine supporter. One of his beefs against President Trump was Ukraine. So let's just, because we talk Ukraine so much, let's just stop and think about that for a second. We have multiple individuals so psychologically manipulated with anger and contempt that they're trying to assassinate the President of the United States because of a fake propaganda manufactured war that has nothing to do with U.S. interests, has nothing to do with the safety and security of the American people, and is all built on political lies that are intended to do one thing: to advance the position of the political parties of those individuals who are creating the lies and the psychosis. So again, back to the Ukraine thing, two of these shooters are obsessed with Ukraine. And, you know, when you think just about that and the like irony of it, but also how disgusting it is, it just makes you realize once again why that war needs to be stopped as quickly as possible, and why everyone needs to understand what a massive lie it is. And I'll just, you know, add to the lie thing. You published, CDM published my, you know, 4-minute description of how the Ukraine war started. No one criticizes, no one's ever come back to me and challenged the facts about how Ukraine war started. They just do what Democrats do whenever they try to debate facts. They just resort to name calling and false accusations. And so no one disputes that the war was started by the U.S. and the EU. No one disputes that the U.S. and EU overthrew the Ukrainian government. But what now we're realizing is another order of magnitude of the negative effect of what they did. And that's this, you know, manufacturing of extremists in the United States who are willing to actually kill the president.
You know, you've talked a lot about the Ukrainian, the censorship industrial complex in Ukraine. And it's not just in the U.S. or the West that they're indoctrinated. The whole Ukrainian society is indoctrinated. And I just want to this up. We put out Ukrainian parliament drafts law imposing criminal penalties for Ukrainophobia, which is you say anything wrong, anything against the war, anything against Zelensky, you have Ukrainophobia and you can go to jail. So it's insane, and they are completely indoctrinated. I talked to a lot of them on the phone, and it's just insane how warped their view is, at least the ones in the West. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's true. And remember, the Rada is 100% Zelensky's party. He outlawed opposition parties in Ukraine. So the Rada is all in. They know if this falls, if Zelensky falls, they fall. It's the people that you and I feel for so much are these Western Ukrainians who just, because of the controlled media, which was controlled by Soros before Zelensky, they have no idea that Maidan was not an organic protest. They have no idea what Victoria Nuland said about spending $5.5 billion of USAID funds to resource the Maidan protests and the overthrow of Yanukovych.
Here, as part of this historic announcement, we have such a great cultural fit as companies. So we're very, very excited to be Embraer's newest customer. We launched our airline in April of 21, and our target is focusing on small secondary airports of large metro areas. We've carried over 8 million customers since we started on 63,000 flights. And we've done all these things with 1,200 of the greatest crew members I could ever imagine having, and many of them are here with me today. This is the right airplane for us. It's going to open up opportunities for us that no other aircraft can serve. The best thing about the airplane, of course, is you will not find a middle seat on this airplane. It doesn't exist. We won't have any to offer. It's going to be the best cabin in the United States, and we're so excited about that. This is going to elevate our experience to the highest level, and we think our customers are absolutely going to love the airplane.
So they don't understand that the prominence of the neo-Nazis in that overthrow, or the start of the civil / ethnic war against the ethnic Russians in Eastern Ukraine. So it's a good point, but it's a complex thing, and that's why, you and I have said this over and over. We can't say too many times. We don't have a side. We're not pulling for Russia or Ukraine. We're pulling for this war to stop. And this is one more reason why it needs to happen sooner rather than later.
Before we move on, just one comment from Amy Williams. Why doesn't the Trump administration seem to be interested in the conclusive investigations of Butler, Charlie Kirk, etc.? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't know. I would think, especially on Butler, that they would dive deeper. But yeah, it's a great question, Amy. I'm maybe needing a little more time to think about it, and I'll answer it again next time we come on.
Yeah, sounds good. So you want to move to Iran? Yeah,
let's go to Iran. And we talked last time about, so what's going on. Just to sum up Iran, I'm not going to go into the results of combat ops. We talked about that. The Navy's at the bottom of the Persian Gulf. The Air Force doesn't fly. The Army has no role, and most of their missiles have been attrited. So we're in this ceasefire period. Its back channel communication is open, which has been open almost the entire time. You've heard people saying, this schizophrenic thing. Trump says something, then they deny they said it. Well, in some cases, they are being truthful, because there's multiple people talking here, which is a positive sign. It means the resistance does have a voice. We're not just talking to one theocratic representative, which would be a dead end, I believe, for the Trump administration. But what we did call out was what cannot be forgotten here, just like we just talked about Ukraine, is the Iranian people. And they have been forgotten. And once again, the culprit, the weapon, is the mainstream media. And, they push things like Trump fascist. You saw the bar graph, and then they squash things that counter their narrative. So they squashed the fact, the reason there's no reporters in eastern Ukraine is because they would see that the war is being fought in ethnic Russian cities, and it's the ethnic Russian houses, businesses that have been turned to rubble, and it's the ethnic Russian civilians who have been displaced and killed. That's why they don't go. But the same thing's happening in Iran, and there's a fantastic series of videos out, raw videos from cell phones that for the first time show what life inside Iran is, but specifically in that period leading up to the start of the war in the end of February. If you remember, we were in negotiations, but while those negotiations were going on, Iran had some of its biggest protests all across the country to date. So we have a film, and I think, you know, picture movies worth 1,000 words.
3, 2, 1, 0. On air, power to X, and live from Oxford Bravo. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, X1, XQ.
همکارم فرنوش فرجی اینجاست تا درباره آخرین تحولات و حملات در تهران ما بگه چه بوده در گذشته روز در تهران. پشت فرودگاه مهرآباد چند تا انفجار داشتیم در چیتگر، همینطور در بابایی، بولوار امیرکبیر.
الان نزدیکای نوروز، ما بیش از 2 ماهه که از قتل عام ایران میگذره. 9 اسفند حمله آمریکا و اسرائیل به جمهوری اسلامی آغاز شد. در اولین حمله علی خامنه‌ای و تعدادی از فرماندهانشون که دستشون به خون مردم آلوده بود در این 47 سال همشون کشته شدن.
جالبه که اون ماسک هم زده.
چرا سرشه؟ الان ما خبرنگارای ایران اینترنشنال همه مشغول پوشش خبرهای جنگیم، اما این دلیل نمیشه که ما فراموش کنیم که 18 و 19 در ایران چه قتل عامی صورت گرفته. ما همچنان مستندسازی خواهیم کرد، همچنان روایت خواهیم کرد اتفاقایی که برای مردم میفته و سکوت نمی کنیم و همچنان ادامه میدیم به این که بگیم در این 2 روز چه اتفاقایی در ایران افتاد.
مشهد 18 دی‌ماه 1404 کاملا شهر در اختیار مردم شده. هیچ کس نیست، فقط دست مردم.
اعتراضات مشهد 18 و 19 و 20. مذهبی، غیر مذهبی، زن، مرد، پیر، جوون، همه دست همدیگر رو گرفته بودن، اومده بودن تو خیابون شعار بدن در شهری که جمهوری اسلامی فکر میکنه اونجا خیلی اقتدار داره، مردمش طرفدارشن. اون جمعیت نشون داد نه دیگه این نیستش.
مشهد 19 به فرمان شاهزاده. سیدعلی سرنگونه! سیدعلی سرنگونه!
همون طرف وکیل آباد کلی آدمه.
18 شروع شد از بولوار وکیل آباد.
مشهد 18 دی وکیل آباد.
سیل جمعیت وارد بولوار وکیل آباد شد. در مشهد در جاهای مختلف تجمع بودش، تو سجاد، احمدآباد، خیابون راهنمایی، اینها هم همشون تجمع داشتن، اما کشتارش به اندازه بولوار وکیل آباد و هفته تیر نبودش. اینا بیشترین نیرو رو خالی کرده بودن در میدون پارک روبرو صدا سیما و استانداری میخواستن از اونجا محافظت کنن.
1404 نزدیک به صدا سیما دارن تیراندازی میکنن. صدای کلاشه.
مردم که از اطراف، از امامت، از پل صیاد، از هفته تیر، از هر جا که می اومدن به سمت بولوار وکیل‌آباد می دیدن که لباس شخصی‌ها در کوچه پس کوچه ها کمین کردن.
بیاین کنار، بیاین کنار.
نه چیز زد موتور زد رو زدی.
آره.
کلیش هستشه. سکوت نکن میبینی منو.
ماشینای یگان ویژه از دم پارک ملت، از میدون پارک اومدن با ماشین‌های زرهیشون بستن بولوار وکیل‌آبادو و از اونجا شروع کردن به مردم شلیک.
از بالای پل دارن به مردم تیر میزنن.
از بالای پل صیاد اینا شروع کردن تک تیرانداز گذاشتن و بالای ساختمون‌ها، رستوران‌ها و شروع کردن به مردم تیراندازی کردن. همه شروع کردن به جهت مخالف رفتن. از کوچه‌های اطراف موتورسوارا با تک تیراندازا، با قمه، با چاقو حرکت کردن به سمت بولوار وکیل‌آباد. این شهروند برامون میگفت وقتی میدویدیم میدیدم که آدما دارن میافتن زمین، کفش پاشون در اومده، افتادن یه سمتی. همینجور میگفت یا کشته میشدن یا زخمی میشدن، میافتادن. همه داشتیم به یه سمتی فرار میکردیم، اما همه حرکت کردن به سمت هفته تیر.
ماشاءالله ماشاءالله ماشاءالله. پل هفته تیر مشهد 18 دیما پل هفته تیر. هفته تیر تیر خورده. هفته تیر 18 هم تیر خورد.
بولوار هفته تیر میشد قتلگاه آدما، قتلگاهی که از بالای کلانتری شروع کردن مردم رو به رگبار بستن.
کلانتری هفته تیر داره میزنه فقط. چند نفر تا الان تیر خوردن.
مردم دست خالی بودن، سلاحی نداشتن. جوری از بالای کلانتری بهشون شلیک میشد که فقط ویدیوها دیگه این مدلی بود. کشتنش، افتاد. یه دونه سطل برداشته بودن، با سطل میرفتن، سطل خوابونده بودن رو زمین، با سطل میرفتن جلو که آدمای دیگر رو نجات بدن.
بعد از خیلی بخور بیا. زنده بالایی بیا. بیارشی برم.
آقا یک بیمارستان چیزی ببرم. کجا الان بیمارستان؟
کجا ببرمش؟
یک سال دیگه ببین.
آتیش درست کرده بودن به خاطر گاز اشک‌آوری که به سمتشون شلیک میشد. به ما گفتن که به آتش نشانها ابلاغ کرده بودن که در این شب شما اجازه خاموش کردن هیچ آتشی را ندارین. شما اجازه کمک کردن به مردم ندارین. هیچ تلفنی را نباید جواب بدین. همین بود که حمید مهدوی مردم رو انتخاب کرد. یعنی انتخاب کرد سمت مردم باشه.
همگی فرستیمای مشهد تاریخ 18/10 تیراندازی مستقیم با تیر جنگی.
حمید مهدوی اونجا دقیقاً در بولوار هفته تیر مجروحین رو کول می‌کرده و به سمت امن‌تری می‌برده، به کوچه پس کوچه می‌برده که بتونن نجاتش بدن، ببرنش خونه، به خانواده‌اش زنگ بزنن، به بیمارستان منتقلش کنن و مجدداً برمیگشت و این کار بارها و بارها تکرار کرده بود.
یه مجروح رو دادم میارم.
در آخرین باری که برمیگرده که مجروح رو میذاره سر کوچه و زمانی که برمیگرده خودش کسی بوده که بهش شلیک کردن و همونجا در جا کشته میشه.
اعتراض برادر من، عزیز من، اعتراضش چی؟ یه آب باریکی میاد، خدا رو شکر راضی هستی، یه موقع اعتراض نکنین و اخراج میشین.
پیج اینستاگرام داره که داخلش ویدیوهای زیادی از خودش منتشر کرده بود.
این چند کار تو آتش نشانی نکن.
شاد بود، امیدوار به آینده بود. واقعا میتونی به معنای واقعی کسی که عاشق زندگی و عاشق اطرافیانش و مردمش بود رو در ویدیوهاش حس کنی. پیکر حمید مهدوی رو بعد از چند روز به خانواده‌اش تحویل میدن در روستای دروار از توابع دامغان، اونجا به خاک میسپارنش. تصاویر اولیش خیلی دردناک و غریبانه بود، اما مردم برای 40م حمید مهدوی سنگ تموم گذاشتن. بعد اینکه مسجد نذاشتن عزاداری کنن، رفتن مزارش، مراسم رو اونجا برگزار کردن.
به یاد فرزند ایران و جان فدای میهن حمید مهدوی.
جمهوری اسلامی بیش از 36500 نفر رو کشت، یعنی بیش از 36500 خانواده. فکر میکرد که میتونه همه رو از بین ببره، اونها رو بترسونه، سر جاشون بشونه. ولی زمانی که 40م جاویدنامه شروع شد، خانواده ها نشون دادن که اصلاً همچین اتفاقی نیفتاده.
برای برادرم احمد خسروانی عضو تیم ملی بسکتبال ایران، مرگ خامنه‌ای، مرگ خامنه‌ای، مرگ خامنه‌ای، حسن نداری که سازش کنی، رهبر قاتل را ستایش کنی، این گل فرزند شده هدیه به میهن شده، سایه‌ای به پایان، سایه‌ای به پایان، فرزند ایران و جان فدای میهن، آرین عسکری.
You know, folks, what it shows is just she does some great reporting. There's a fireman, and they mix in, they show him when he was alive, dedicated fireman, funny guy. Anyone who knows Iranians, he's one of these jokers, always messing around. They show the videos he's made with his own phone, and he was out there as a protester too, a fireman, and he was shot and killed, shot in the head and killed That's just one. They show a number of teenagers who were also shot and killed. Talk about the fact that, you know, one of the things that really strikes you about these protests is first, the danger they're all in. There's thousands, tens of thousands at each of these cities, and you realize this is not for the faint of heart. They're being shot at, and they know that that's happened before numerous times. People are hung without due process for wearing their hijab wrong. So, you know, really, it took a lot of bravery for these people to be out there, but they keep coming. You know, someone goes out and announces, "Hey, the protests meet on this street. We're going to protest the government," and they're all together and they're chanting, you know, against Khomeini, against this regime. They want freedom, and yet, you know, I'm at a loss for words to describe that why this is not shown by the mainstream leftist globalist media. It's another one of their crimes of omission that, you know, even for them is just hard to fathom how you can have this lack of compassion, how you can't be showing this going on. They could do it in a balanced way. They could criticize Trump, and everyone has a right to criticize the war, as we talked about. Without the intelligence, without hearing the intelligence, if I was his advisor, I probably would have advised against this in the beginning, but I wasn't. And the intel obviously was once in a lifetime intel. That's the only way you take out 48 of the top leaders in a country in the first 48 hours, and then surgically destroy their entire nuclear military industrial complex, as well as all their hidden missile caches. Yeah, so, and again, it's not about not reporting. They reported the accidental school bombing, which I assume was real, that happened in the beginning, obsessively. They reported that nonstop. So, you know, not a single US or EU global media organization is reporting on this, and it's happening all the time. And it's a horrific thing, but it's more horrific as a reflection on their value systems.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
This is tough, but your finances don't have to be. I'm David Cross, and I'm a certified divorce financial analyst practitioner. My job is to help you get a fair financial settlement in your divorce and to guide you to smarter money decisions. Find out how we can help you. U.S. Asset Management. It's your money and your future.
Mm-hmm. And again, you know, further in that video, they show a prayer and people praying that that the U.S. and Israel will not stop bombing and that they will overthrow this government so that they can be free. People praying that, and you can tell it's spontaneous. It's just a cell phone video, which is made out in the streets.
تولد 24 سالگی پسر منه. نمیدونم این چه حکمتیه. من از خدا میخوام اون خدایی که منو فراموش کرده، همه رو فراموش کرده. من خدا میخوام که این مملکت ما رو از شر این ظلم و فساد، ظلم و دروغ، ظلم و تباهی هر چه زودتر رها بکنه.
And, you know, when I watched that, I just thought, you know, this is what the UN was supposed to have been made for.
Yeah.
The UN was supposed to be this force that could go save people from totalitarian or theocratic governments that were slaughtering them. We've said the same thing about Eastern Ukraine. We should have gone in and saved the Eastern Ukrainians from 14 to 21. And it's true in Iran also. These people, need help. So,
well, the UN has been one of the biggest supporters in the UK and the Western media of the Iranian regime. I mean, they have worked to stop any change there. I mean, Obama sent them $6 billion, I mean, so that has been a thing. And we need to be aware of that.
So, that's Iran. And to me, again, it's a travesty. Just to sum up, the people of Iran want peace with the West and freedom. Mm-hmm. And the regime wants war, nukes, missiles, and proxies, their proxies, to stay in power. What you see and what you hear from that video is the Iranian people ready to endure whatever hardship it takes if it means they'll eventually be free from this system. Yet this current theocratic government continues to hold on at all costs. And yet we have to ask ourselves, what's encouraging them? Why are they taking such a foolish move? Well, the answer they've already stated is the false depiction of how the West is reacting to the war. Yeah. And if you watch, again, the mainstream media, the reason they're not showing that about Iran is because they're busy showing propaganda, making Trump the goat here. They see this as a political linchpin. If this goes badly, Trump's election chances go badly. Exactly. And to see the world that way, again, you have to stop and reflect for a minute on what kind of mind it takes to close off compassion and humanitarianism to these people, because you have a political proclivity for one party over the other, and because your leaders are telling you hate, hate, hate. There's no other way, and you're following it like a robot. And that's what's really troubling about this. The political attacks on Trump, the fascist Hitler, we talked about that and the damage it's doing, but we didn't talk about the fact that their preference for that message, their dedication to hammering that home, is causing other people to die all around the world, Ukraine and in Iran.
Yeah. I've been, there's definitely narratives being created, and what they're doing is using, I've said this before, kernels of truth to like push another agenda. I don't want any foreign influence. I don't want any foreign influence on our government, but they're using a kernel of truth on that issue to take down the American Republic, essentially. So that is people need to see those narratives being created. I don't hear anything in even on the conservative Inc. side of what about this Muslim influence? What about the terror threat? What you don't hear that at all. It's only a one-sided push. But back to you.
Yeah. So I mean, just to sum up, it's complex, high-stake moment. What's going to happen next? No one knows. And the question is, can we as a nation show the strategic patience required to finish the mission to help these people? And the answer to that is we shall see. But whatever we do, we need to make sure we fully understand the predicament of the people of Iran. So if I was advising President Trump, I would say double down on your contacts. I know they have good embedded contacts in Iran. Fully understand what's going on with the people, begin talking about that, including it in every message, and make whatever decision he's going to make for the U.S. based on what's best for those people.
Completely agree. Where do you want to go from here?
Let's just finish up with Ukraine.
Okay.
Do you have the $90 billion loan?
I do. Let me hold hold on. Let me just, yeah, I do.
Yeah. So Todd finds it. It's a $90 billion loan. Again, that was approved by the EU. And it's quite disheartening, really, because it just shows the EU and their politically aligned leaders are continuing to pour gas on the fires of war and death in Ukraine. Kind of like killer robots in the Terminator movies, they have no compassion, but they also have no common sense. And like a robot, they don't have the ability to combine their emotions with logic, which is where common sense comes from. And they just keep pushing this path. But the $90 billion loan, folks, like everything, is a canard. It's something other than what we think it is. And if you show a few of these next ones, immediately after the approval of the $90 billion loan, the Zelensky cemented deals with both Britain and Germany to buy massive amounts of drones to contractually be obligated to the military-industrial complex in Europe for some of those billions right off the top. And that's what the whole pot of 90 billion is going to go to. It's going to just be repurposed, recycled. That's what money laundering is, folks.
Yeah.
That's what happened with USAID. And all these deals are just going to continue to pop up. And, the horrors of war, we're not aware of them. We're not seeing any of these mangled bodies. Right. The casualty rate is still 1,000 a day for Ukraine, which is incredible. Many of the pundits are saying the war is at a standstill. It's not. It's at a flex point. There's new anti-drone technology on both sides. We covered that 2 weeks ago. That's causing both sides to slow down. But for Russia, it's never been about pushing forward. It's just been about attriting the Ukrainians. And I think we have, there's another video there of Ukrainians trying to flee Ukraine across the border.
That is the one that wouldn't load. I have the, hold on, I have, that video wouldn't load.
Yeah, that's okay. But it's showing, 450 Ukrainians per month die trying to escape Ukraine, trying to escape forced conscription. And only a small part of them are drowning. The other part are shot while they're in the water or right when they're getting out of the water. And again, I have to qualify this. This is not criticizing the Ukrainian people. This is trying to give them a voice. Yes. They are captive underneath the totalitarian regime of Zelensky and his EU and US handlers, because there still are US handlers. We still see Lindsey Graham and Chris, these other politicians still supporting Iran, or still supporting Ukraine at every turn.
Yes.
So it's pretty horrific. Go ahead. I think we have another shot there.
Yeah, I've got this talking about the deals.
Yeah, you can just go through that. That's the Germany deal, multi-billion-dollar deal.
Yeah. And then I have this: Trump's contradictory public comments are harming the negotiation process.
Yeah, you don't need that one.
Okay.
And that's just the fact. We'll just leave it at that. That was a
I have two other
Iran
videos.
thing.
I have two.
Yeah.
I have the shot, the video on the
Yeah. Good. No, that's a good way to end it, folks. We don't show that because we think it's cool. It's horrific, but guys are dying, and they're dying when they get out of their car because a drone tracks them and blows them up on the spot. And that's what none of these politicians, they cannot internalize. Just take one of these soldier victims and internalize it, and it'll change your whole view of the war. There's no purpose to that war except laundering money and using Ukraine as a vassal for the censorship industrial complex, and who knows what else they had in mind. So, I guess the common thread through all three stories we just talked about, the White House correspondent, dinner shooter, Iran, and Ukraine, is just once again this propaganda spewing mainstream media and global media that is not just aimlessly, cutting through stories and censoring studies. They're strategically aligned to manipulate the populace to cause us to fight against each other instead of them, and that's why they love what happened at the correspondents' dinner. This is just another one of their soldiers who's doing what they want, and you heard the initial reaction to it was like what's becoming the norm for the Democratic Party. Not a single Democratic politician has stood up yet and said, we have to stop this. We have to stop creating this violent, combustible atmosphere. We have to tone down the rhetoric, which Trump said right after the shooting. And they could start by stop calling Trump a fascist and a Hitler. And just to close on that, Democrats clearly don't know what a fascist is. So I called up from Merriam-Webster the aggregated definition. There's 4 different definition sources rolled into one, and it's fascism is defined as leader-centered authoritarianism, suppression of opposition, and social and economic regimentation. So let's just apply that contextually to Trump. Leader-centered authoritarianism. President Trump can't even get the 2 most powerful senators in his own party to support the SAVE Act, which 80% of Americans favor, 80% covering both sides. So leader-centered authoritarianism is far from what is happening in our political landscape in America right now as you can be. He can't even get his Congress and Senate aligned because we have still so many rhinos, so many people subject to bribery and doing the wrong thing instead of the right thing. The second is suppression of the opposition. And I love this because, if those tapes had played, you heard Tim Walz, you heard Kamala Harris, you heard Anderson Cooper, all call Trump a fascist. Well, the next time a globalist or a Democrat calls President Trump a fascist, someone should say, you just proved he's not, because you can't have opposition in a fascist regime. Fascists do not allow the opposition to exist. And I already mentioned one of Zelensky's first actions as president was to outlaw the opposition so that he could gain a supermajority in the Rada, which he has today. So there is no opposition party in Ukraine. But every time you hear someone openly call Trump a fascist and then get into their limo, someone should stand up and go, you just proved he's not a fascist. And the final is social and economic regimentation. Again, just look around at the way we live our lives, the freedom the left has to continue calling him names, staging protests, and then economic regimentation is as far as you can get from the U.S., and that's backed by investors. I think there's a $2 trillion investment in the U.S. going on right now, much of that coming from foreign companies in the Middle East and around the globe. And they vote with their pocketbooks, not based on propaganda. So, the basis of the accusation itself is a farce. It's farcical. And I just recommend everyone, next time you hear someone call President Trump a fascist, just pull out the Webster's dictionary and read him what the definition is, and that by definition, he cannot be a fascist.